welcome to another edition of Bison Break. I'm your host, Brendan Whitted. I'm super excited. I'm always excited to have the guests. I'm gonna be real, but I'm super excited to be here with alum Mark Wright, a fellow creator. So welcome on to the show, man. I really appreciate you making time.
Thank you so much for being excited. All this time I was thinking it was all about me while you were excited this morning, but apparently you bring this flavor every day. So, okay.
That's true. Yes, you are not special at all. It's not even, no, I am super geek because getting a chance, I mentioned this before on previous shows, but one of the cooler things about getting a chance to host the show is as an alum myself, I didn't know about all of the people that had come before me and made so many contributions, specifically in sports. We hear so much about all the other people associated with the university who have done so many things, and it is overwhelming, to be completely honest with you. It's a real fire hose spigot sort of situation. You're just trying to catch as many of the people as you can, and so I'm glad to have gotten this opportunity to kind of go back and be like, wow, I got a chance to meet and talk to Tyler Dragon and Jim Trotter and some of these people that I've grown up reading and not even realizing their connection to the university that I love so much. So I'm glad to add you to the pantheon of that, and I'm glad you were able to make time, because this is really dope.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I've seen a few other episodes, and what I'm really encouraged to hear is everybody's like, look, we're not that special. The family is special, and you're a part of that. So yeah, it's really cool that we get this opportunity because we didn't know each other before this, and That's cool. But I mean, really, the special thing is the family and the fact that we all get to contribute to it. And some came before, some are a little bit older. And our job is to make sure that we have a responsibility to the entire family and uplift everybody. So if it means being a part of your platform and helping you with your platform and help getting the great message out on all things Howard University, then that's what we do. And there's nothing special about that, right? Because the bigger issue is what's important. Well, if that makes sense.
No, it makes a ton of sense. And you can tell the love that you have for it just by the way you kind of came out the box. But before we get into all the sports stuff, this is Bison's Break. We like to, peel back a layer and get a chance to know you a little bit as a person. So we're gonna get cracking, get to know you a little bit. All right. So first question right out the box. You're a creative person. I don't know if you're a big, movie goer or whatever, but that, Marvel and MCU and DC, and that's what everybody talks about. So if you're picking a superpower for yourself, what superpower are you picking?
So I've actually had this conversation with my family and with my sons. And as a father and a protector of your family, you always want to be where they are. If something goes down, and you want to know that, hey, if they call on you, even if they don't call on you, can be there.
Right.
And so I think my superpower I'd want to be able to, at a blink, just if you're in New York and you're in trouble, right? And I can sense you're in trouble, I can be there.
Wow.
I can be there. But there's no point in being there if I can't beat up bad guys when I get there. So I also want to be super strong. I want to have Superman strength, right? And so as you can see, I'm like two superheroes, right?
Yeah, you're two superheroes in one. You done combined the joints, and now you both Nightcrawler and Superman. Okay, that's a bad. See, I also would like to be able to teleport, but mine's mostly just so I have to go through TSA. It's really I don't want to be there for anybody. I just want to be able I just don't want to hop on this.
Yeah. You want to teleport, but you want to be able to beat up bad guys, because if you find yourself in a pickle and I teleport, now we're both in a pickle.
I'm just there with you both. We both in trouble. Okay, that actually makes sense. That's really good. All right, okay. So you're in charge of food for a watch party or something like that. You're getting the friends together, and you got to make a dish. What's your go-to dish that hey, I'm about to knock it out the park?
Well, it's got to be Jamaican jerk chicken, rice and peas. I mean, that's that. First of all, if the flavor is right, and if it's peppery enough, right, all the conversation goes out the window, right? now we're just eating, right? And we're doing yeah, man. So right now we're just eating and liming and having a good time, which is what parties are about. That is
100. It's the food is good when everybody's talking and then goes dead silent when the food comes out, that's when you know you hit it. Like that's when you know
it's right.
you've hit the sweet spot. All right, last one. If you've created a lot of sports content in your career, but I'm going to change it up a little bit. I'm going to switch the roles. I'm giving you your own interview show, kind of a late night type of joint. Who's your first guest?
Mike Tyson.
Oh yeah,
I literally tweeted this out maybe a few weeks ago, and I said, because Mike Tyson's in all our feeds, and you just see him, talking about different things, and even as recently as this morning, I saw something where he said those 3 years in prison were the most peaceful years of my life.
Wow.
And that's everybody's reaction. Like, what do you mean? Not that night you made 30 million in the holy film? Like, he's like, no. He's like, what is the point in having all that if you don't have peace? And it's just amazing to me, his transformation from Mike Tyson, 19-year-old, 20-year-old heavyweight champion of the world, who was just annihilating everybody. He was the most feared man on the planet, to this person who literally lost everything. And there was a point there where, as sports fans, we were all very worried about Mike. Right. And to hear him kind of speak, I would just love to sit down and have a conversation with him. I'll probably get a chance to ask one question and just have him just go.
Yeah. He's definitely, I would say he's probably the most interesting sports figure of the past like 50 years or so, just because I mean, no one would have thought, like you said, no one would have thought in the early 90s that he would be here. For sure. Now that's a perfect answer.
Who's yours?
Boy, it'd be hard not to go with Serena. I think I've just been reading so much about her, with her ending up the U.S. Open and just kind of what she went through in terms of just being a trailblazer. But it's hard. It's amazing to be both a trailblazer and one of the greatest athletes. Like, I mean, it's like Jackie Robinson was a great baseball player, but if you're talking about the greatest of all time, maybe he's not on. Serena is the greatest. I think she's the greatest tennis player, male or female, that this country has produced, and I think is the greatest female tennis player ever. So to be a trailblazer and to be that's a lot of pressure. I remember when her and Venus were catching so much slack for wearing beads on the court, and just like literally every little movement that they did became an issue because they were in a lily white sport. And so I look at Coco now, Naomi Osaka, Sloane Stephens, and I just she's the reason that I got more heavy into tennis. I like Agassi and Sampras, and they were cool, but Serena was like it. I was like, whoa! And when you saw her, you saw something a little bit different. I think that's why I'd have to go with her. But
can't go wrong with her. Can't go wrong with her. Yep. She'd have some things to say.
She would have some things to say, and now she turned to a mogul on top of that, just completely insane. Okay, let's get to know a little bit more about you. Like, how'd you end up choosing Howard?
It's funny. So I'm Jamaican heritage. My parents are both Jamaicans. I was born in England, and I grew up in Jamaica from 2.5 through 12 when I came to America in DC. And my mom's a nurse. My dad's a welder. And my mom got a job at Howard University Hospital. And back in those days, kids of employees of the university and the hospital got some tuition of remission. And so my college list looked like Howard 1, Howard 2, Howard 3. My Jamaican parents were like, don't even come here looking for a list. You better research Howard all you want. You're going to like it. So literally that's how my college decision was made. It was not a bad decision. It was the best decision ever. But at the time, I wanted to be like my other friends and have a list and then come to their parent and say, okay, parents, here's my list. Where are we going to go? Nah, didn't work out that way.
Now, you're a journalism major, correct?
Correct.
Did you always know that you wanted to turn that in, combine that with your love of sports, or was that something that kind of came later as you kind of developed your own muscles in that?
No, I think you got that right. I mean, I always wanted to be. I was a sports fanatic. And I loved it. And I was also fairly verbose and not shy. I read the announcements at church, you know what I mean? And the announcements at church, it's the same thing. It's 9:30 Sunday school. It's 11 o'clock main service, Wednesday night Bible study. Right. And that's the whole thing. That's pretty boring. So I tried to, switch it up a little bit and make it fairly creative. and practice to speak in front of people. And so that's kind of where I got my that was my mini camp, if you will. And I've always been an athlete, and so I wanted to put the two together, and it sort of worked out that way.
Talk to me about when you first started, because you got your start. Now, correct me if I'm wrong. You got your start in sports journalism and at ESPN. Was that the first place?
So that was certainly one of the main stops.
Mm-hmm.
And if you're telling the Mark Wright story, ESPN is a very big part of it. But I'd be remiss if I didn't talk about the beginning of the journey. The beginning of the journey was actually it was an internship at the George Michael Sports Machine at WRC in DC.
Mm-hmm.
And RIP George Michael. I mean, he was the guy. Everybody wanted, you didn't miss the Sports Machine 11:30 at night on Sunday nights, right? Those highlight shows were the thing. And I wrote a letter to the producer there and said, hey, I'd love to be an intern there. Here are my qualifications. I had no qualifications. Right? I was a freshman, right? and I guess he saw something in my letter that said, wow, this kid's got some energy. Turns out I didn't have a phone. I didn't put my phone number on the letter. So he had to look my parents up in the phone book.
Wow.
And he looked them up in the phone book. And my dad was like, Mark, some kind of George Michael. I'm like, who's that? George Michael? I'm like, oh my gosh, give me the phone. And that was really the beginning of my sports life. That's really from cool. There, it evolved into other internships. But the real job was at the Washington Times. That was my first job out of school as a copy editor. Oh, and from there, I worked for BET for a magazine called Young Sisters and Brothers Magazine. From there, ended up in New York working at Black Enterprise Magazine. Which again, shout out to Black Enterprise. I'm a big credit giver. Okay.
No, you should be. Yeah.
And thank people for, basically, laying the foundation for me. And they gave me an opportunity to write on a larger platform. And Black Enterprise did that for me. That evolved into ESPN. Mm-hmm. And ESPN, the magazine, really just kind of catapulted me into just the larger space.
Right. Because you work for ESPN Magazine, ESPN Events, and then for the Undefeated, which is now Anscape.
Correct.
Give me your highlight of your time there.
So I'll say this about ESPN The Magazine. And this was a time where in publishing where dollars were just flowing. And it was just a really good time. The best job I've ever had in my life was at ESPN The Magazine. Wow. Partly because I didn't know what I didn't know. Right. I didn't know that, there's such a thing as budgets that you have to be mindful of, and you can't go home in a car service every single night. But, this is pre-wife, pre-kids. This was just a really, really good time. Yeah. So I learned a whole hell of a lot there. And I really think that experience at ESPN The Mag, I still have friends from then. And we're talking about a few years now. It's been a minute. And I have friends and mentor from that time in my life. And the ESPN The Magazine job, I left ESPN The Mag and worked at some other magazines. And this was a time where publishing was sort of shriveling up and dying on a vine. And it was the dawning of digital. And so I was the kind of person, my wife as well, who's a journalist, career journalist. And we really jumped on the digital bandwagon very early as it was dawning. We didn't treat it as a black and white TV that's not going to be around. I mean, we jumped on. And so, so we've been in that space for a very long time. So ESPN, the magazine, other magazines, that evolved into ESPN Events, where my job was to basically oversee an entire digital footprint for ESPN Events, collegiate events footprint. So that was, and I was really in that. And then that evolved into ESPN, the Undefeated, Anscape, and which was, by that point, I'm a seasoned vet, and right. I can, when I make a pitch, I'm pitching it with my chest up, and if you say no, you better come at me with a really good reason as to why.
I can imagine that being, because you're at the dawning of a kind of a new age, as you mentioned, going from print, which was I remember reading ESPN Magazine, Sports Illustrated, like all that stuff, and like it being like. That was just kind of it. Like that's, and you had the newspaper, but I was a little bit younger. I wasn't doing a ton of reading in the newspaper. It was magazines for me, particularly in the sports. And so for you to have the kind of the foresight to not push against that is pretty special, because anytime there's change and something like that just going on, you can kind of, I mean, it's natural, I think, for anybody to kind of hold on to what they know and can kind of poo-poo some of the other stuff, and you roll right into it. And one of those things that you rolled into was your Project Redemption song. Tell me a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So, and I think, just to go back on that, you framed that up perfectly, because the change was not easy. And when you see that change coming, there were a lot of people, I'm talking about my peers, my peer group, who poo-pooed it. And when they decided, okay, now I'm going to jump on the train and get on board, there was no room for them.
Yeah.
Right. They didn't speak the language. They didn't understand. And really it held them back for a very, very, very long time. So yeah, but Redemption song. Yeah. So let's fast forward to 2014, and I'm at ESPN events in Charlotte, and I had just reconnected with my high school soccer coach, Ian Bain, and we're talking on the phone, and he was just a hero and a mentor to me. And I said, "Hey, coach, what's been going on?" He's like, "Yeah, well, my team, my 1971 team that won the championship, and the 74 team that won a championship, we were just enshrined in the Howard Athletic Hall of Fame." And I'm like, "Wow, that's amazing. Must have been a pretty good team." "Yeah, we were pretty decent." I'm a Howard alum. I knew nothing about the history.
Right.
And he said, "Yeah, we were pretty decent." I'm like, "Pretty decent? No, that sounds pretty sad." "Well, Coach Lincoln Phillips, his coach during his time as a player, he just put his autobiography out. You should read the book, and then you can decide if it's a good story or not." Well, I just he fell back and became that 16-year-old kid who was running through walls for my coach, as a high schooler at Springbrook High School in Maryland. I read the book, and I'm like, "Wow, coach, this is a 30 for 30. Like, this is like 30 for 30. He's like, "I don't even know what that is, but if you say if you say so." So that turned into, I believed in it so much. I wrote a treatment, and my then the gentleman who ended up directed Redemption song, my good friend Ken and Holly, shout out to Ken and Kay. I gave it to him, and he said, "M-Dub," called me M-Dub. "M-Dub, I just got goosebumps. I got goosebumps. First of all, you've never written a treatment before. Like, well, how'd you do that?" I'm like, I'm a journalist, right? Mm-hmm. So he got the 1-page treatment, and he ran it upstairs to ESPN Films, and they said, this is pretty good." Actually lies. What they said was, "This is decent. We don't know if it's 30 for 30 level. We have enough money in the budget to give you some funds to create a short film. We just brought on Spike Lee to create a series of little joints, shorts, and he doesn't have an HBCU film. He'll probably like this." Well, long story short, Spike ended up liking it, put his name on it as executive producer, and the film became Redemption Song. And we named it Redemption Song because the story is about the 1971 team that won a national championship. It also holds a claim as the first national champion to have their title revoked and then vacated. And then 3 years later, Howard won the championship again, redeeming that 71 team. So that's how we came up with the name. Of course, with my Jamaican heritage, Redemption Songs with an S on the end is a big Bob Marley song, and as well. So it felt near and dear to my heart. So that's what it became.
That's really, really cool. Did you get a chance to meet Spike Lee at all, or spend any time with him?
I didn't spend a whole lot of time with him, but I have met him. Yes.
It's really cool. That him obviously being a Morehouse guy, that's pretty cool. And and again, why representation matters in some of these spaces, because if he's not attached to it, maybe this doesn't happen, or if he's not the person that can recognize how great of a story it is, maybe it doesn't happen.
You learn there's everything's about timing, right? Everything's about timing. Remember, at the time, I didn't work for ESPN Films. I worked for ESPN Events, but I had a boss, Pete Dursis, shout out to Pete Dursis, who said, "I realized that I can't put you in a box. You have other things that move you, and storytelling moves you. And this story is important to you. If you get your work done and you want to, lean into ESPN Films and they'll have you, who am I to hold you back?" And sometimes the best way, I say this all the time about mentors and bosses, sometimes the best thing you can do for somebody is just get out of the way.
Mm. I think
And
that's really prescient. That's
and,
that's real.
and Pete got out of the way for me, and I did my job, right?
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
I respect that to this day. He's a friend and a mentor still.
Well, let's talk about that, because now the shoes kind of on the other foot now, because you have a Wright creative agency that you have co-founded with your wife. Talk to me a little bit more about what that entails, and what that's been like to be like the guy at a place.
Yeah, well, it's wonderful. So Wright Creative is a content marketing and video production company. We call ourselves storytellers, not like everybody else calling themselves storytellers. We actually done it. So we're a team of writers, editors, strategists, designers, just creatives in on all facets we have big clients that we work with. And it evolved because, Heather and I have always been doing things on the side. You could call it the side hustle. For all of our
Right.
careers, we've always written for other publications. When we wrote for other publications, we always hired our friends who worked for other publications. We never put ourselves in a box. And she worked for an agency in Greensboro, North Carolina, for several years, and really ascended to really, really high on the totem pole there. She managed over 100 people across the country. And she got to a point where she was like, I can do this for myself. I'm having some challenges here working for somebody. I'm having some challenges here, making a whole lot of money for somebody else and only getting a piece of the pie. And granted, I'm getting a piece of the pie because I work for somebody, but it doesn't have to be this way.
Mm-hmm.
And so we've always said that, hey, when the time is right, we're going to, go do our own thing. And the morning that she actually decided to walk away from her big job, we've been talking about it, but we didn't say, okay, we're going to do it tomorrow. And so I remember she was on her way and on her way to drink Greensboro, and she calls me and she says, hey, what's good? I'm like, I'm good. You all right? How's traffic? Good. She said, today's the day.
Oh,
And
wow.
I said, what? She said, yeah, today's the day. I'm like, whoa, are you sure? And really, the headline there is just jump.
Yeah.
It's not like we're not prepared. We talked about this. We planned. Yeah, we didn't come up with the date and the time, but we're prepared. And she did that. And it's really credit to her that Wright Creative is where we are, because we might not be where we are if she didn't take that initial leap. And so when she took the leap, right, I was still at ESPN at the time, sort of holding things down there. And then after 2019, I was full on, took the leap with her, and we are collectively Wright Creative.
I love that story. I want to ask you about one of your newest projects, I guess, under that umbrella.
Yeah.
Press Pause, the podcast that you recently came out with. Tell me a little bit about what that project's about.
For sure. So we've always talked about having extensions to the brand, and it's funny. So we have conversations going on here all the time, and our chief content officer is a lifelong friend of ours, Kelly Killian, who actually lives in our neighborhood. And so she's over here all the time. And Heather and Kelly are always having conversations about, they came up in print and publishing together, worked at Time Inc. together. And so they've always been co-collaborators all the time. So to hear them literally sit there, drink wine, and have an hour-long or 2-hour-long or 3-hour-long conversations about career and goals and hurdles they've scaled, no's they've heard, yeses they've said no to. I mean, it's just really a beautiful thing. Mm-hmm. So that became the impetus for, hey, this is a conversation that I shouldn't be the only one hearing. Mm. This is a conversation that the world needs to hear. And the whole idea behind the name of the podcast is, headlines just come and go, just going. And we read the headlines and never read the whole story, right? So people just have a very peripheral understanding of most things. And the idea is just press pause for a minute, because conversations matter. And let's just talk about, we don't have to read all the headlines. Let's talk about the ones that really mean something to you. So Press Pause became a thing. And our first episode, our first show, we launched just a little over a month ago. We did a show that I hosted around HBCUs and NIL, which we were talking about off air. And I had I moderated, and I had Tiffany Green from ESPN, who everybody in the HBCU space knows. She's the first African American female play-by-play commentator for college football at ESPN. It's a big deal. Jasher Cox is AD at Allen University. He worked at Tuskegee University as well, worked at the SWAC office. He'd been my guy for years. And Dr. Trevian Scott is the AD at Grambling. So I was like the least impressive guy on this panel. All right. I literally, the most impressive thing that I did is just putting everybody together. And we had
man, that's important. That's important. Point guard, make sure everybody's getting fed on the court. Yes, absolutely.
Yes. I was old Mark Jackson. I was just slowed it down. You're not gonna strip Mark Jackson. Let's keep it real, right? Yeah, but the fast break's gonna be slow.
That's really good. That's really good. Now, and that's available on any particular platforms, or just all platforms,
all the platforms.
Wherever you find your podcast. Absolutely.
And
you've already. Look, I'm hitting subscribe as soon as I get off this, John.
Please.
I also want to shout out your social media handles to make sure that everybody can follow you for all the other stuff. Now, you've got at Wright Creative. That's WRIGHT Creative, the numeral 1. For Indeed. All the Wright Creative Agency stuff. And then your personal one is WRIGHT_ONE, spelling out the letter 1. I mean, the number 1. Yeah. Thank you so much for it. Well, I've got to ask you, because I ask everybody before they leave, if you had 30 seconds to talk to the alumni base, to talk about the importance of giving back to Howard's athletic program, what would you say to them?
Oh man, it's so important. So, I mean, what I've learned from, having a diverse pool of friends, right? There is a kinship with your alma mater that is undeniable, right? So Howard University is the greatest institution, educational institution in the world, right? That's my school. That's the school who made me, right?
Yeah.
When you tell the story, Howard University better be in the headline.
Yeah.
So it's that level of kinship and passion that you expect people to have. But just a word about Howard University, and having, done a film about Howard University, at least their athletic piece, and just knowing the history of this school, it's so important to American culture. It's so important to Black people. And when you dig deep and look into the archives of what Howard University is and where we've been and where we've come, I mean, it's just a phenomenal institution. Dr. Wayne Frederick is tremendous, and good luck to the president who succeeds him.
Yeah,
it's just been phenomenal. So I would just ask, my friends and fellow alumni to just do a little bit, right? Whatever it might be, and it could be as simple as maybe you lost touch with the school, maybe you haven't been to a sporting event. Go to a football game, go to a soccer game. Contribute to our athletic department. Just do something little. We're not going to ask you to, give up your firstborn, right? But it's just do what you can to have that, to reinvigorate that kinship that you once had with the institution, because it really is. And I talked about that family on the front end, right? It's not about one individual. It's really about that family.
Exactly.
And that's what it is.
Very well said. BisonExpress.org/giving. We set it up to make it very, very easy for you to give. As Mr. Wright mentioned, it doesn't have to be everything. It can just be something small. And as he talked about going to a football game, the MEAG SWAC Challenge is going to be next week. I will be hosting at HU Cosell. I'll be hosting a Spaces coming up this weekend, but more importantly, Thursday, the 25th of August at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. If you can tune in, that'd be great. You learn a little bit more about Howard's program, learn a little bit more about the SWAC, and just about conference realignment in general. Thank you so much for your time. You were amazing. I am not surprised after having like just done more and more research and found out more about the stuff you've done. It's very, very impressive. I really hope to speak with you again and get up at some point if you're ever in the DC area. Absolutely, because you're in North Carolina, so you know I'm a North Carolina boy. So
DC is home for me. DC is home for me. You don't have to make up a reason to come. Listen, big ups to you for everything that you're doing. Support this brother. He's doing good things, and I love to see it. Anytime you call me to help you, to be on a show, to retweet a post, anything, I will be there for you. I'm not just saying that because this is being recorded. I'm saying it because it's being recorded, so you can hold me accountable.
Man, you don't know what that means to me. Thank you so much. As always, guys, be blessed, and you guys take it easy.